We're back. Running for election against Mitt Romney's no easy feat, and the techniques he's employing right now against President Obama are ones he's honed in past elections. One former Massachusetts candidate knows exactly what it's like to face off against Romney. Shannon O'Brien, a former state treasurer of that state, was Romney's Democratic opponent in the 2002 race for governor. She lost by 5 points after winning a four-way Democratic primary. She knows Romney's playbook. She joins us right now. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to put this to you. Take a couple minutes. You're sitting at dinner with President Obama. He invites you upstairs to the White House. He says, I need some time with you. Tell me what I need to know when I face this guy in a debate. What do you say?
Well, I think that the most important thing is to really focus on his values, because I think that for, it's almost 20 some odd years now that Mitt Romney has been running for higher office. And I think that it's really the values that are lacking there. And I think that that's what they're trying to do. I think that that's what this whole thing about Bain is, and his record at Bain. And it's what I tried to do in 2002 is really talk about values. There's a difference between someone who cares about middle class people, who cares about investing in the infrastructure and the educational system so that all people have a chance to do well. That's what I'd tell him.
Well, what would you say to make it relevant to people? How does the president make it relevant to people that he was a swashbuckling, even ruthless business guy who made a huge amount of money quickly because he was willing to push the edges, push the envelope, maybe cost people their jobs, lots of them? How does that affect the average person right now? I'm asking you to tell how you tell the president what to do in this kind of a debate. How's it relevant that he may have been an SOB as a business guy? Related.
Well, I guess that's your characterization. But the point that I tried to make 10 years ago was I do think that it's relevant when you have someone who is more focused on personal profits rather than looking at the real stories of people. You have to have empathy. And I think that that was one of the things that we've seen in the beginning of the campaign is I really think that there is a lack of empathy on Mitt Romney's part. I mean, the whole story about the race cars and some of these other things that, he kind of knows these people when he's trying to seem like a regular guy. I think that he does lack empathy. And that lack of empathy it bleeds into not only his business practices, but more importantly for the people of this country, the lack of empathy will bleed into how he invests in the future for the majority of people in this country.
Okay, let's nail one of the biggest issues of the campaign, at least right now, which is what role he played in outsourcing all those jobs to overseas, basically costing Americans their jobs by sending those jobs overseas. The discussion we're having now is about Bain and what he did at Bain Capital and whether he actually oversaw the company's migration toward outsourcing. And this is critical in this campaign right now. You hit him with that line of attack in 2002, 10 years ago, in the Massachusetts governor's debate. Let's watch you in action against Mitt on the very issue of Bain Capital and outsourcing.
The fact is you were still signing documents as CEO of the company while you were away. And as a matter of fact, in the summer of 2001, when you were leaving the Olympics, you actually made a statement in the paper that in the summer of 2001, you were finally relinquishing 100% control of your position within Bain. And so apparently you hadn't relinquished that beforehand.
Did that help you in the campaign? Did it mean much to voters that you nailed him for having been responsible, at least technically, for costing all those jobs?
I didn't nail him because he basically said I was not telling the truth. And ultimately, at that point in time, it was, we were getting outspent close to 3-1 in those final, weeks and months of the campaign. So trying to make that point wasn't as easy. And I also think it was more difficult for us because people had heard some of this before. I think they kind of understood it because Ted Kennedy had raised some of the same issues in the 1994 election. It worked for Ted Kennedy, but I think that maybe people were either giving him a pass or what. I don't really know, but I don't think that it was as effective. But I think it's more effective for an audience, a national audience of people who really haven't seen that sort of set of values or that hypocrisy, if you will.
He seems to enjoy the formality of a debate, Mitt. He's a formal guy. It seems to me, my advice, well, what do you think of telling the president, you got to loosen this thing up a little bit. You got to do a little fast and loose in your debate style. If you get formal like him, very stiff like he does, he wins on that platform.
The thing I've noticed, and I think, again, during my campaign and other places, I think he has a very tough time when he's unscripted. The times where he's made most of his mistakes is when he goes off message. And I think the more that President Obama can actually have a conversation and get him to go off script and to engage him on a very personal level, I think that will perhaps benefit the president.
I'm with you completely, Shannon O'Brien, so much. I completely agree, because if this is just a battle of rehearsed lines, Romney could win this thing because he's pretty good. He can memorize as well as anybody can.
I think that Obama is going to have to show his heart versus Romney's heart, and ultimately that core, that set of values, and that empathy. And I think that that's going to be ultimately what this comes down to. And Bain is just setting the table for that.
Well, call up David Axelrod and get an appointment. It sounds like you know what you're doing. Thank you so much, Shannon O'Brien of Massachusetts.